Hey, I'm talking with Hatton Littman from School District 1. And Hatton, I understand the school board had a chance to meet last night and talk about finalizing or at least trying to get some numbers together for the upcoming bond issue. And what was discussed and what was the outcome?
Well, that's right. The board did meet last night, and this is at the end of what has been 2 years' worth of work and process with the community to identify the needs in the school district and the total cost to cover those needs. Essentially, the outcome of the meeting was that trustees readdressed the total dollar figure, which at this point is $158 million to cover both the elementary and the high school bonds. And the majority of trustees articulated a desire to stick with $158 million, even in the face of some evidence that there may be somewhere between $5 and $10 million of additional costs that they need to consider.
All right. So if you could break that down for me as far as the elementary versus the high schools and what the various numbers are there.
Sure thing. So the elementary district, and that is city voters that live within the city limits, that is an $88 million bond project. And then the high school district, which is city voters as well as county voters, that's a $70 million bond project.
Okay. So now I'm sure the one thing that voters are most concerned with is how that's going to affect their property taxes, because from the poll that was recently released, looked like a majority of folks are in favor of doing this. So if you could just kind of forewarn us a little bit about what this may cost the average homeowner.
Well, I think if you live in the city and you would be taxed for both the elementary and the high school projects, it'll be a little over $200 annually on a property that's valued at $200,000, which is about the median home price in Missoula. If you're a county taxpayer and you live in a county area, you would only be paying on the high school bonds project, and that would be about $70 per year on a $200,000 home.
All right. Now, do you foresee any changes between now and the time the bond issue actually comes up, or is that something it's hard to look into the crystal ball?
It is hard to look into the crystal ball, and of course the bond will not be on the ballot until November. The current trustees are very committed to identifying a size and scope and finalizing a package in April. So I anticipate that April 21st at the next meeting, the trustees will be articulating some clear final numbers. But again, there's still 5 or 6 months until the actual ballot language goes to the elections office. So there could be some small adjustments and there could be some price changes. But I think in general, the trustees are very interested in letting voters know this is what they can expect in the fall.
All right. Now, I realize that any good administrator has to plan for any contingency. What happens with the school district and with the school board and with these plans should the public say no?
Well, should the public say no, we certainly have to go back to the drawing board internally and potentially go back to the drawing board with the voters. A significant amount of the needs that would be addressed by this bond are deferred maintenance needs that are required investments to keep our public buildings safe, secure, and inhabitable by our students and our staff. So I think if the public said no on this particular package in the fall, I would anticipate that the administration would be working with the community, working with the trustees at that time to say, what are next steps? How can we continue to address these needs? The needs won't go away. They're really basic fundamental needs to improve the schools, so we'd have to identify another plan to support them.
All right. Now, if it does pass, at what point do you see actual construction beginning?
That's a great question. We would see actual construction beginning as soon as the summer of 2016. We would certainly begin the design phase and the bidding phase immediately in the winter of 2015 and going into 2016.
So would there be, what would be your first priorities? I know that there are schools that are in desperate need of remodeling and replacing. So is there a hierarchy of need?
There is a hierarchy of need, and certainly elementary schools fall in the front of that, both based on failing properties as well as capacity issues that are sneaking up in the elementary district. The trustees will finalize those priorities, and again, that hasn't been finalized by the trustees yet, but it does involve the construction of new buildings as well as high priority of some of our highest impact buildings like Lowell Elementary, Franklin Elementary, Hawthorne Elementary. So there will be a timed out, staged out process, but that hasn't been finalized by the trustees yet.
All right, perfect.